Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The Full Time podcast is presented and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 5, Episode 21 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano. Before we begin today's show, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. The Full Time Podcast is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The Full Time Podcast is also sponsored by Sioux Sports. To check out Sioux Sports and all of their articles, announcements, and streaming platforms, including True Host Media and True North Radio, visit SiouxSports.com as well as Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. A reminder, listeners, that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms of public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, it is a delight to have you back with us on Full Time. We hope that you are all doing well. G, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. There's some grass in my front yard finally. I'm watching the City game, so I'm going to apologize if they score, concede a goal, and I interrupt you at any point. But I am doing fantastic. How are you doing this morning?
I share the same sentiment regarding seeing a little bit of grass, and very happy about that. And I'm doing really well, man. Just got back from my March break, or for our American listeners, or my spring break vacation, and rested, recharged, and ready to go. So I am doing very well, sir. In today's show, we will discuss Europe's Big Five, the Champions League, and the Carabao Cup, as well as local soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on all platforms of 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. Let's get into Europe's Big Five, and we will get the party started with the discussion about the English Premier League. Liverpool remain 15 points clear over second place Arsenal at this point in time. Nottingham Forest occupy third place. Chelsea have moved into fourth place for the time being. G, your thoughts on the battle for the top four? I know City are playing right now, and when I shut the game off when I was watching Match of the Day, they were winning, so they temporarily moved into fourth. But what could you say for the battle for the top four?
So Brighton actually just equalized right off halftime. So they're currently back into fifth, but it's a huge battle for top five right now. Brighton are in seventh again as the result stands with the draw. And yeah, it's a pretty hectic battle for European football. Pretty much like second through ninth are battling for some form of European football, which is insane. Like half the table battling for these couple of spots. And again, there's only a few points really outside of from fourth all the way down to ninth is just a handful of points, one or two results away from either European football or not for next season. It's going to be an absolutely insane kind of last 10-ish games. A couple of teams have 9. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy, crazy battle. And I would not be willing to put money on anyone outside of Liverpool and Arsenal at this point with guaranteed European football next season.
Yeah, not too many guarantees can be placed. But one thing that we talked about in our last show, and you actually just mentioned it, we're probably going to be looking at more of a top five than a top four for teams that'll get into the Champions League, and 7 or 8 teams that can get European football. So a lot of spots on the line in the Premier League for teams who can qualify for next year's European Cup competitions. And in the relegation zone, it's as wide of a gap as we've seen this entire season between 17th place and the bottom 3. Ipswich Town and Leicester City both have 17 points in 18th and 19th place, respectively, while Southampton remain bottom of the Premier League with just 9 points. Gitano, are we ready to say that Wolves are safe from relegation, given the fact that they've got 23 points with 10 games remaining? It's a 6-point gap between them and the bottom 3.
Absolutely. And the other thing is they're also currently winning their game right now. So there's, presumably another 3 points in there as well. Barring a catastrophic collapse, I think we're looking at a confirmed bottom 3 of Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. I can't really realistically see anything else changing that.
Yeah, I'm willing to put my money on the line there that the bottom 3 that are currently there, that's how it will stay. And it's unfortunate to see that the 3 teams that come up go straight back down, but sometimes, and you said it on our show a few times, you got to yo-yo a little bit in order to stay. Similar to a team like Fulham, they did that for years, and now look at them, right? So, yeah, I think that those three teams also will stay. In Spain's La Liga, it remains honors even at the top of the table. Barcelona and Real Madrid have 57 points each. Atletico Madrid trail them by a single point with 56 to their name. Athletic Club aim to remain in the conversation with 49 points in fourth place. There's no slip-ups that can be had in La Liga, it appears. And again, similar to the Premier League, we talk about the top four. In La Liga for Spain, it's going to be looking like the top five, more like it.
Yeah, and again, I think I mentioned this either on the last episode or the episode before. It feels like every time we talk, like there's just a huge game coming up, and this weekend is Barcelona Atletico Madrid. And yeah, like we're at the point of the year where that could potentially be a title deciding fixture. I just love the mid 2000s to like 2010s vibes that this title race is giving us. Barca, Real Madrid, Atletico. It's fantastic. I don't think Athletic Club are going to kind of challenge for that third, but I think they should be comfortably playing European football next season. And even the battle around there, between Villarreal, Betis, Celta Vigo, and potentially even Mallorca, like to battle for those final European, like the Europa and the Conference League spots. I think it's shaping up to a really interesting battle in Spain.
Yeah, I agree with that too, and it's nice to see so many clubs involved in those races for the European places. Out in Italy, Serie A, it's fine margins as Inter are topped by a single point over second place Napoli. Inter has 61 points, while Napoli has 60 points. Atalanta has 58 points in third place. Juventus currently edge Lazio for fourth place. Gitano, there are so many hypotheticals that can be put out here, but how are you seeing things with 10 games to go in Serie A?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the narrow margins. So Inter and Napoli played not last week and the weekend before to a 1-1 draw.
By the way.
Yeah, it's just, I think that kind of just sums up what the title race in Italy right now. It is just the finest of margins, the tiniest of mistakes could cost either one of these teams, a league title. Atalanta aren't fully out of it, but I think they're just that hair off right now. But yeah, and again, like I said, it's Inter and Atalanta this weekend, because of course it is. Where again, if Atalanta win this game, they can go level with Inter, and then obviously Napoli are playing Venezia, who they should comfortably beat. Yeah, it's just an insane race in Italy right now. I'm loving it.
It really is. And I mean, you take a look at the points margin, 61, 60, 58. That's as close as you'd want it and as you'd like it. So anything can change, on the drop of a hat, drop of a dime. So it's great to see that race out there in Italy, Serie A, and as always, we'll definitely keep a close eye on it. Germany's Bundesliga has a race to the finish with Bayern Munich leading the pack by 8 points. What happened in the game there? I saw
huge save. Marmoush should have scored.
Oh,
sorry.
But yeah, Bayern Munich leading the Bundesliga by 8 points right now. They have 61 points to Leverkusen's 53 points. Mainz and Frankfurt occupy the remaining 2 Champions League spots. Gitano, it's less than 10 games to go here, so really down to the wire. Is there any chance that Bayern Munich let this thing slip?
I really don't think so. So even if we go back to last match week, Bayern actually lost 3-2 to 16th place Bochum. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not going to pretend to know. But then Bayer Leverkusen turn around and lose 2-0 to Werder Bremen. Like just any sort of chance they had gone just like that. And again, like we're under 10 games left in the Bundesliga. I just don't see it happening at this point, especially with that 9-point gap is just, when you get the Bayern Munich slip and you don't take advantage of it, like you're just not going to win the title that way.
That's exactly it. And I see it now in relatively clear picture that it is going to be Bayern Munich who are going to be lifting the trophy at the end of the season, which I think is a plate, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, Harry Kane's finally going to win a major trophy.
Going to win a major trophy, and I mean, you know what? It is what it is. He's put in enough work to finally win one, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not like he's been a passenger at Munich at all. He's been very much one of their better players. So it's just, I'm a little annoyed that we're not going to be able to make those jokes anymore.
I know. And let's not forget the amount of hate that he got coming out of this summer from the Euros. Everyone said he was done, washed up, finished. Doesn't seem it to me. He's had a really good season, and I think in Thomas Tuchel's side, I know we're not talking international football, but I think he's going to fit in okay there.
Oh yeah, and I think Tuchel's smart enough to like get the best out of his best players. I feel like that when you look at his time at Chelsea, they maybe weren't the most successful club in England at the time, but the best players at Chelsea were the best players at Chelsea. And I think he's going to take the Harry Kane, the Jude Bellingham. I think he's going to make those like the best players for England, the best players for England. It's going to be interesting to watch. And I think Harry Kane coming off actually winning a major trophy is also going to be a much better player as well, with kind of that weight off his shoulder.
And that's the thing of where this all kind of ties back to. Players who do really well domestically tend to go and just kind of hit the ground running with their international side. So definitely good stuff for Bayern Munich at this moment in time. France's League 1, it's PSG who keep it rolling with 9 games remaining with 65 points and still undefeated in league play. Marseille are holding on to second place over third place, Nice. Gitano, PSG have the League 1 with just 4 more wins mathematically is what they will need. And it could even be less than that if Marseille have any slip-ups along the way. What a season for PSG that they have been having domestically, Gitano.
So I swear this isn't like scripted, but PSG Marseille is the next match week as well. And the way I look at it, and not that there's not other good teams in France that can beat PSG, but I feel like if PSG can, maybe not even win, but just not lose this game, I really don't see them losing any of their remaining domestic fixtures, just with the way they've been playing. And yeah, like this, it's just the league is wrapped up. I know you said mathematically 4 more wins, but at this point, the league is basically over. It's been really impressive to watch this PSG team, and I know we're going to talk about how impressive they are a little later in the show, but they are just. It's like this is what PSG was supposed to be. Like this was, the original kind of idea from the Qatari ownership, and it's as long as it's taken us to see it, it's pretty impressive to finally see the not completed project, but like the kind of I would say like 3/4 of the way project done already. They've been phenomenal this year.
Young, vibrant, enthusiastic, tactically sound, loads of energy. I mean, everything with this PSG team. And as you know, I've made it abundantly and clearly known on our show. I don't really pay that much attention to France's league. I don't watch the games. I do with La Liga. I do certainly with Serie A, obviously with the Premier League. I do watch a bit of Bundesliga. I really don't watch Ligue 1. But with this PSG team, I have kind of turned my eye towards it this season because it's a young, energetic, enthusiastic team who is really fun to watch. And to your point, it's exactly what they were supposed to be. And I think at this point in the season, I don't think that you're going to see that side changing too much because a lot's on the line. We're going to talk about the Champions League shortly, but with an undefeated season on the line, I don't think they're going to chop and change too much. So I really think that they're going to go for it. And I think with the types of players and personalities that they have in that team, I can't see why they wouldn't. So kudos to them. They've been a fun watch this season for sure. The Champions League round of 16, Gitano, as we move on, is done and dusted. And here and now, we will take you through all of the ties from this round, along with the teams moving on to the quarterfinals in this competition. We will first start out with the tie between Barcelona and Benfica. After Barcelona got themselves a 1-0 victory in the first leg, despite being reduced to 10 men early on in the match, it was a 3-1 second leg victory that would see Barcelona move past Benfica by an aggregate score of 4-1. Gitano, if you could speak to Barcelona's performance in this tie.
Yeah, I thought they were extremely professional in the first leg, going down to 10 men pretty early. Just you rarely see a team look that comfortable down a man, but they just looked so good. Controlled the game. It wasn't maybe the most entertaining and beautiful watch of all time, but like I said, it was super professional. Got the job done, and then obviously with 11 men in the second leg, really kind of put the pedal to the metal. Got the 3 goals. Benfica were good, just outclassed, outqualityed. Just Barcelona look really, really, really good.
Yeah, they do. And again, you want to talk about a fun team to watch. Barcelona is right in that conversation, and they did well over the 2 legs. Can't say that they didn't deserve to go through. And kudos to them because they're battling for all things on all fronts at this moment in time. Inter went up against Feyenoord and turned them over not once, but twice en route to a 4-1 aggregate score. Inter booked their spot in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. G, your thoughts on this tie?
Yeah, this was an extremely, again, like professional performance from Inter. Never really looked like they were in any danger, but also never like kind of taking their foot off the pedal. Just played very, very well. And again, watching that, so I've seen a little more Champions League than Serie A this year, but I watched those two legs of Inter, and I'm like, that's why they're the reigning, uh, the reigning Italian champions. Why they're on top of the table right now, and why, kind of as long as anything major doesn't happen there, they should be one of the top teams in Italy for the next couple of years. They are just like one of the sides that I would least want to play in Europe across anything right now. Like they are just incredible, like front to back, the defense, the goalkeeping, their midfield is fantastic. I love their attack. They are just one of the best teams in Europe. And just Feyenoord looked very good. Like I think they did themselves, no disservice at all, but just matched up against Inter, they were just never going to win that.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know how you feel about it, but the media always talks about the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs. Inter they just kind of, I don't want to say quietly, because when you're that good, you can never be that quiet, but they don't get as much media attention as some of the other big clubs in Europe. And I think that's kind of why they just go about their business and they just kind of tick along. And to your point, been so good domestically over the years. They're really good in the Champions League. And I think that kind of bodes well for their success. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I was terrified when City drew them in the final there. Like I wanted AC Milan. I was like that is the far easier matchup. Inter scared the living out of me. I was terrified because I was like they're just so good. And Inzaghi's got them playing. I really didn't rate Inzaghi up to that point, which is probably more of a me thing than anything else. But I was like, he's good, but he's not that great. And then you play them in 90 minutes of a Champions League final. You go, well, that is a just a perfectly drilled team. And they were a Rodri perfectly curled shot away from being European champions. Like, and I think if the tables had turned and they had won that, then I feel like they would be getting that media credit. But yeah, like you said, like for some reason, media just refuses to give them that credit when they've been one of the best teams in Italy the last 5 years, one of the best teams in Europe the last 5 years. They have the domestic trophies to show for it. I just think, if they were to pull off a Champions League win this year, which I realistically think they could, then I feel like they might start getting the credit they deserve because they've been super underrated for honestly a very long time.
Yeah, just a proper outfit of, like you said, a very well drilled team and fun to watch, by the way, too. And they're just not your classic sit deep and defend. They can do quite literally a little bit of everything. So, been so good under Inzaghi and super fun to watch. So credit to them for moving on to the next round of this competition. Liverpool and PSG were set up for what was thought to be a marquee matchup in this round of the competition. After what most people consider to be a smash and grab by Liverpool in the first leg, as they snuck a 1-0 victory. It was PSG who knotted things up at one apiece in the second leg, where the script, as many say, flipped on its head. A battle that was largely contested between two phenomenal goalkeepers would keep things level, meaning extra time was needed to see who would advance to the next round of the competition. Extra time, as it played out, didn't settle matters, so to penalties it went, and it was all PSG in penalty kicks, winning 4-1, and thus eliminating Liverpool from the Champions League. Gitano, what scenes in this tie between two formidable teams? Liverpool, they went and topped the league phase of the competition. They go up against PSG, who just narrowly qualified, and now PSG are going through. Have your say now, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of why. Not that I don't like the league phase, like we've talked about. Like it's very early in it. Like we haven't seen a lot of it yet. But when we kind of talk about it being a little bit like kind of meaningless, this is kind of, and we haven't talked about, but like the media's kind of discussed it. Like the top team out in the first knockout round. Like Liverpool played the same amount of Champions League games as Man City this year. Like that's the level that we're at. But PSG, I think, and we can kind of talk about them. We talked about them already, but I want to talk about them more. Like you've seen them almost like grow into the team that they've become over the course of the year. And obviously domestically, it's a little different in Liga with not as much competition. But I think in the Champions Leagues where you've really seen the progress from, struggling to, barely qualify to now almost comfortably knocking out Liverpool. I wouldn't say it was totally comfortable, but it was just very much like a coming of age performance from PSG, I thought. And yeah, it's just, I don't think Liverpool did enough to win at all. I don't think. They were so wasteful in front of goal, and it's just, you absolutely cannot do that in the Champions League. That's like the number one rule of the Champions League is like, take your chances. We were talking about Celtic and Bayern a couple of weeks ago. Like, that is like the golden rule. And I think PSG kind of turned it around, solidified themselves a little more in the second leg, and honestly probably could have scored a few more in the first as well. And then when it came down to penalties, Gigio Donnarumma. If there was ever a penalty to, with my life on the line, I need a keeper to save it. I'm picking him a million times out of a million. It helps that he's like almost 7 feet tall, but just fantastic. And I think, over the course of 180 minutes and the penalties, I think the right team went through.
Yeah, man, I have to say that for sure, that the right team went through. I do think that Liverpool had a better second leg. First leg, in my opinion, did not deserve to win it. But again, it's football, and like you just said it perfectly, in my opinion. The golden rule of this competition: got to take your chances, and if you don't, you're going to get punished, especially by a good team. And Liverpool did that with the one chance they had late in the match. But yeah, I think the right team went through, and PSG battled, and they stuck around, and they kept with it, and they never got down on themselves, and they found a way to push the game to its absolute limit by the end of it. And then they win it on penalties, thanks to, like you said, the backstopping of a unreal world-class goalkeeper. So yeah, I like the fact that PSG went through, but this competition showing very much so that anything could happen. League phase done and dusted, and even though a team like Real Madrid or a team like PSG just kind of snuck their way in, here we are. The battle of the German heavyweights, Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, was also set to excite the masses, but it ended up being a very one-sided affair in the end. Over 2 legs, it was all Bayern Munich and very little Bayer Leverkusen. Bayern Munich win by an aggregate score of 5-0. Gee, this wasn't even close. What happened?
Yeah, it was probably the most disappointing, I would say, of all the ties, just in terms of the hype for it versus what we actually got. I think obviously the Mukiele red card in the first leg really kind of set the tone. It was only 2-0 at that point. You go down to 10 men, you give up the extra goal, and then you go into the second leg without one of your best central defenders. Like, just always a recipe for disaster. And I just don't think Leverkusen were ever able to kind of recover from that. And like we've talked about Bayern Munich, like, just kind of growing into this competition as well, weren't the best in the league phase. I think, and this is the first time Vincent Kompany's coached, European competition, and I think we've seen his tactics and his decision making, like mid-game, grow as well. And I think this was just a very complete performance from them. Really never in danger. I thought they were extremely impressive.
Yeah, extremely impressive indeed. Leverkusen were always kind of behind the 8 ball, trying to catch up, and yeah, very disappointing because you and I both picked them from this tie. We thought that it would be certainly a lot closer, and that we thought that Leverkusen would pull it out at the end. But yeah, never really stood much of a chance, given the things that you brought up and given the things that transpired in the tie. Lille and Dortmund had themselves a tight affair across 2 legs. After neither team could win it in the first leg, Dortmund, who had a brilliant second half in the second leg, showing themselves to be resilient and determined as ever. Dortmund win on an aggregate score of 3-2. Gitano, a very close tie here and a very close call, but that second half in the second leg from Dortmund proved to be the difference. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought. Like, they were down and out. They had Jonathan David, the Canadian, actually scored 5 minutes into the second leg to put Lille up. And then 2, I don't want to call them late goals, but in the 54th minute, 65th minute, to see Dortmund through. It almost felt like the kind of the early 2010s, like the Royce, Götze, and Lewandowski era Dortmund, kind of just a complete unit of like a team. Just everyone bombs forward in the attack, everyone charges back in defense. I love the unity in that squad right now. They're playing phenomenally. And I think, they've got a tough tie coming up here against Barcelona. I know we'll discuss it on the next episode, but if they can kind of carry that mentality and this momentum from this comeback, I think they stand a really good chance of getting through here.
Yeah, and I mean we're not looking ahead right now to the next phase of the competition, but what I will say is that for any team who could be that resilient and stick it through to the end like that, the team that they're going to play, of because it's going to be a case of, well, we know that we have to play the full 180 minutes, otherwise we'll probably bow out. So Barcelona is going to be taking a few physical and mental notes, shall we call it, because they won't be able to not give their all for the entirety of that tie. Aston Villa took on Club Brugge in the round of 16. It was Aston Villa who showed consistency and attacking prowess over two legs, winning by a convincing 6-1 scoreline. Gitano, Aston Villa are through to the quarterfinals. What can you say about that?
First of all, just like shout out Aston Villa. That is incredible. When you think of where they were like a handful of years ago to where they are now, it's just like worlds apart. Doesn't even feel like it's big enough of a gap. It's like universes apart. And like they were so impressive. Like scoring 6 goals in a two-legged tie in Europe is not an easy feat.
No.
But they looked so convincing. I really thought Bruges would give them a lot more of some pushback, put up a little bit of a better effort, but they were just entirely outworked, outclassed, out hustled. Like it was ridiculous. This Villa side are just absolutely purring in Europe. I'm almost running out of things to say about how phenomenally they played. They were so impressive, and I genuinely, and this is going to be an insane thing, I genuinely think they have like a decent chance of making a semifinal here. Like they are phenomenal.
That's not a bad shout, and it's not dramatic to say that. I think that they do as well. They've got the manager, they've got the players. I think the business that they did in January, obviously, it's helped them. We saw that in this tie, and they've got a playing style that it's one of those things where if you look at a team, you can say, "Oh, this team plays a certain way." Well, Aston Villa, they're one of the teams that can actually change things up as they go, and I think that versatility. And I believe this as a coach, that not just sticking to one thing. I think having a vast amount of things in your repertoire tactically, I think is really good. So I think that they can go very far in this competition, and they look super impressive against Club Brugge. Arsenal took on PSV in the round of 16 and took it seriously at that. After a historic 7-1 victory in the first leg for Arsenal, the second leg was compulsory, but nothing that PSV could battle back from. Arsenal win by an aggregate score of 9-3. Gitano, your opinions regarding this tie?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll leave most of this to you as the Arsenal fan, but after the first leg, it was basically done and dusted. I was maybe hoping for a little more from PSV, but Arsenal were just fantastic in that first leg. So the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, sir. I really, it's an interesting one because I don't know what to necessarily say, because the 7-1 shocked me beyond belief. Not going to say that I sat there and watched the full game. I've said on our show 1,000 times, you have too, with our work schedules, it just doesn't happen because we, by the time that we finish work, we can only really second half. So I turned on the second half, and by the time that I did, I saw the score line, and there were a few goals later on as well. And I'm just thinking to myself, where did this come from? And it's that sort of contribution by committee that goals are going to have to come in a vast, in a variety of different ways. And in the tie, goal from a header, goal from close range, goal from outside the box, these sorts of things. We're going to have to score in different ways from different positions from different players. And moving forward in this competition, that's exactly what it's going to have to be without a recognized striker. So, I was really pleased with the performance across two legs from Arsenal. Got to see some different players in different positions in the second leg. I watched that one whilst I was away on my vacation the other day, midweek, and now we move on to the next round against the team that we're going to talk about upcoming here, that has the highest and best pedigree in the competition. It was the Battle of Madrid, as we're going to finally talk about here. Atletico Madrid taking on Real Madrid. Real Madrid took a 2-1 lead after the first leg, but in the second leg, it was Atletico who brought matters level. First minute into the second leg, it was Conor Gallagher who put that one away. So it was 2-2, and in the end, the historic tie would require penalties, where Real Madrid bested their counterparts by a score of 4-2 on kicks from the spot. Real Madrid are through to the quarterfinals. Gitano, did this one live up to the hype for you?
Absolutely. It was, minus the red cards and like Pepe stomping on people and, that kind of stuff that we're used to. Diego Godin, throwing elbows, the fun times. Kind of minus that stuff in terms of, the actual football played. It was brilliant. I would say like by a mile the best of the ties that we saw, and probably one of the best we're going to see for the entire tournament. I will say I'm super disappointed with the penalty shootout and the VAR and all that. You've seen that
Uh,
the
more,
Alvarez two touches.
yeah. So whilst I was away on my vacation, I would train in the morning and then just kind of enjoy the day afterwards. So through my workout the other day, I just watched an hour-long segment of them analyzing the double touch and the 1,000 different angles that they had to go through. What a mess, Catano.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So there might be an angle that shows it. No angle that I have seen, and I have scrolled Twitter for hours trying to find it, showed a double touch from what I could see. Anyways, now they might have angles that they haven't released, and that's fine. Um, but like to me, the other weird thing is, so if a goalie's off his line and makes a save, the shooter goes again.
That's right.
But a player double touches the ball and scores, it's just a disallowed goal, next shooter.
Yeah.
I don't really understand that rule in terms of like, the goalie gets a redo. They don't just, award an automatic goal, but for, the penalty taker, they just don't get a chance to go again. I've never really understood that. That was a little odd. But yeah, it's Real Madrid in the Champions League. Those are the kind of decisions that end up going their way because you have to play them off the park. You have to beat them so convincingly to beat them. It's a little disappointing to see them go through. I really would have liked to see Atletico Madrid go through, not just to see Real Madrid go out, I should say, but also I just think Diego Simeone is just one of the best managers on the planet. And his Atletico Madrid side does not get the credit it deserves when you look at how long he's been there, the stylistic changes that he's made along the way, and just the continued success that he's had there. Would have been just a little bit of a nice story to see them beat their local neighbors, but obviously not, and Real Madrid go through.
Yeah, and I don't know if speaking of Simeone, if anyone gets the opportunity, should YouTube his post-match press conference. It's purely in Spanish, but the subtitles are on. And people said that he threw a fit in there. I don't know if you've watched it, Catano.
Most of it. I haven't been able to watch like the full thing, but I wouldn't say it was a fit.
Then why? And that's what I was trying to get to. I don't think that it was a fit. I think that he was just talking straight facts in a very passionate way. But you see the way that he manages, he's just a passionate individual. I would encourage anybody to go and watch that. And it does leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth in terms of how this tie ended. But to your point, it's Real Madrid, and when you are who you are in this competition, who you have been down the years, you tend to get those calls, don't you?
Absolutely. And, you have to do like what City did to them in the treble winning year. You have to just absolutely batter them to the point where those decisions don't matter. And if you don't do that, if you give them a chance to, if you give them, an inch, they'll take 6 miles off you. And yeah, like I really wish Atletico would have played just, not they didn't play good, but just you have to play them off the park. You can't, this isn't like a league phase or like, their domestic league where you can, get a goal in the first minute and then kind of sit back and, know that you're at least going to go to extra time with penalties. Like, they should have pushed it a little more. Probably would have liked to see a little more. But yeah, sour taste in the mouth sees Real Madrid go through.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where, and I'm just going to give a local reference here. So this is for our Sault Ste. Marie listeners. I played through Croatia for 5 years, and when I was with them, everyone used to say, "You guys get all the calls. You guys get all the calls," and we would categorically deny that and say, "No, we don't. No, we don't." And then now, all these years later, now that Sault Croatia is not a competitive club anymore, but just an over 45 recreational club, when people bring up stuff from the past that, yeah, you guys at Croatia, you guys got all the calls before, it's like, yeah, we did get some calls that we definitely shouldn't have got, but that's what happens when you're, sort of, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but just referring to Real Madrid, when you're a top in that competition, like you get some level of favor. It might not be intentional, but you do.
Yeah, and I mean, like you could look at any sport and any referees across the globe, and it's the same thing. Um, And I mean, also you kind of get to humble brag about that because you were one of the best players in the league. Well, you still are one of the best players in the league for one of the best teams in the league for basically your entire playing career. So yeah, it's not a humble brag. You can talk shit about that if you want.
I'd rather not, but I think the people who are talking right now are Atletico Madrid. They are certainly pleading their case, and Real Madrid are probably staying a little bit silent, but they certainly won't be silent for long because they've moved on to the next round of this competition, as did 7 other teams. And reviewing our picks from this round, Gitano, um, unfortunately for you, you didn't do as well as you probably would have liked. You went 3 for 8. I managed to go 6 for 8, but if we go back to our picks from a couple rounds ago, it was kind of flipped. So you dominated your picks where I suffered. So these were our choosings, if you like, from this round. But any big upsets for you or anything that you thought to yourself, wow, I really thought that was going to be a different outcome that sort of shocked you?
um, I was surprised at how dominant Arsenal were against PSV. I thought they would probably still win. I thought they would do well. But like obviously 9-3 on aggregate's not what anyone was really going to predict. And then Villa against Bruges as well.
Yeah.
Obviously we understand the level that Villa play at is very high and they're very good. But again, 6-1 over 2 legs in a European quarterfinal. That's not an easy feat. So yeah, I was just super impressed with both of those. And then disappointed with Bayer Leverkusen. Would have liked to see a little more from them, but it is what it is.
And that's the one for me that disappointed me and that really shocked me was the Leverkusen one, because even if they didn't win, even though we both picked them to win, I would have thought to myself, okay, it's going to be super close, and it wasn't. But as for the other results, nothing really super surprised me, but definitely that battle of the German heavyweights, I was expecting more. The Champions League quarterfinals are very much around the corner, beginning on April 8th and finishing up on April 16th. And in a future episode of Full Time, so not our next episode, the one after that, we will preview the quarterfinals of Europe's biggest and best cup competition for you all. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to the Full Time podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker and easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Moving along, it is the Carabao Cup final that has our attention and is on our immediate radar. Gitano, it will be Liverpool up against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final. Is this a game that fans can be excited for?
I mean, it's a cup final. It's a major cup final. Any football fan should be, tuning in and excited for it. Obviously, if you're, a German fan, maybe you're not the most excited for it. But anytime you get to watch a cup final, you should be super excited for it, especially a cup final at Wembley. It's just that little extra.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly where my eyes are going to be tomorrow. And even though I feel as though Arsenal could have done a lot better to get into this final, I take nothing away from Newcastle or Liverpool. They deserve to be there. And I'm looking forward to the final as well. And now we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into this cup final, Gitano. Between these two teams over the course of their history, they have faced one another 57 times. 9 times Newcastle got the better of Liverpool. A whopping 36 times did Liverpool defeat Newcastle. And on 12 of those occasions as well, they drew. So, does history play a factor in this cup final at all for you?
Not particularly, not full history. If you had said, in the last couple of years, this is the kind of the aggregate, I would be a little more convinced. But if you want to talk about what happened in like the 90s and the 80s, I don't think that lays too much into this at all. No.
Yeah, me neither. I think a cup final, I don't want to say everything goes out the window, but a heck of a lot does. So I don't think it has too much bearing on what's going to happen in this game at Wembley. So now looking at these two teams, Gitano, and how they got into the competition, got on in this competition, specifically, we'll start by looking at Newcastle. They started the competition with a 1-0 victory over AFC Wimbledon. They then took on Chelsea, defeating them by a score of 2-0. A massive game against Brentford went their way by a score of 3-1. And then over 2 legs in the semifinal, they kept consecutive clean sheets, winning 2-0 on both occasions over Arsenal. And Gitano, when you look at Newcastle, apart from having to play one game at the Emirates against Arsenal in the first leg of the semi-final, every game for Newcastle in this competition has been at St. James's Park. Now, Newcastle are going to be going to Wembley for this cup final. Will not having the full effect of St. James's Park have a negative impact on Newcastle, do you think?
I think it'll be a slight negative. I think the positive for them is that they're not going to Anfield or like another non-neutral venue. Like they're going to a neutral venue. It's going to be half Liverpool, well, roughly half Liverpool, half Newcastle, and the corporate and all that. So it's not like they're going to be, only bringing, call it, a couple thousand fans to sit in like the furthest corner of the ground. Like they're going to have half the stadium still backing them, supporting them. So I don't think I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's not going to be as big as people make it out to be.
Yeah, and the one thing that I often say on our show, and I believe this wholeheartedly as a coach too, when you're not conceding goals, that's a really good sign. Doesn't matter where the game's played, how it's played, when it's played, etc. They've only conceded one goal in this competition, which is massive for them, I think. So not having the backing of St. James's Park, yeah, it's you'd obviously rather that, but like you said, stadium will be about half full of Newcastle fans. I think they should be all right in that regard. Liverpool, on the other hand, has been finding different ways to win games in this competition. After first starting the competition by defeating West Ham by a thumping 5-1, they then went on to have a really tight affair against Brighton, beating them by 3-2. And then they got a close game over the line despite dominating the match against Southampton by a score of 2-1. And in the semi-final, they actually lost their first leg to Tottenham 1-0, but then a triumphant second leg at Anfield saw Liverpool win 4-0 and thus 4-1 on aggregate. Liverpool have shown that they can win games in this competition in a few different ways. How does that bode for them going into this final?
I mean, anytime, whether it's, a League Cup like this or the Premier League, Champions League, any sort of competition, finding different ways to win is always like just, it's a crucial thing, really. You look at any successful team ever, no game was the exact same. Like, you look at City's, not it was the Centurions, like there wasn't 38 games where they played the exact same, Arsenal's Invincibles weren't 38 of the same games. Being able to shift into different gears, play different styles, I think it's obviously super, super helpful. And again, not just for this competition for Liverpool, but the way you've seen them play in the Premier League this year. Again, it's not been the same all the way through. So I think it's just it's a massive positive for them. I think because I don't know if they played Newcastle twice in the league yet, or just the once so far. Off the top of your head, I don't know off the top of mine. I can check.
I say definitively that I know we'll probably have to look that one up and confirm it.
Give me 2 seconds, but like, so it looks like they already have played them twice in the league already. So again, like what Newcastle saw in those first two games might not be the same as what they see now. What Liverpool see from Newcastle in those two games, or saw from those two games, isn't going to be the same they see at Wembley. I think, being able, and then the other thing is not just being able to play different styles, but be able to adapt on the fly. I think that's the other major thing. It's not just like, if we set up as a 5-back, like we're just a 5-back for the whole game, no matter what, like being able to, change it up. And we've seen Liverpool do that, change, on the fly how they've been playing. I think it's a huge, huge, and again, not that Newcastle can't do that, but being able to do that is, advantageous for Liverpool.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And to your point, I don't think what the two sides saw of each other in the times that they've played each other this season, I think that they could probably expect some different things going into this final. So I think that's going to be a very big talking point for sure. And according to DraftKings Sportsbook, Liverpool's odds to win this trophy is 63%. Newcastle just has a 17% chance of winning, and the chance of things going to extra time or penalties is 20%. Gitano, do these odds make sense to you?
I would give Newcastle a little bit more of a chance. Having all that, the odds for extra time and penalties, I fully agree with. I don't think it's going to be a very like wide open back and forth game. I think it's going to be really tight. And I wouldn't be surprised if we went extra time and penalties. But I think Liverpool as favorites does make sense. But I would maybe give Newcastle a little more credit than what the odds makers are giving them.
As would I, and I think 63% is very, very high, and I don't not rate Newcastle that much. So I think they're a very good side as well. So I do think that could be a little bit more even, despite the fact that Liverpool probably should be favorites. And Gitano, it is time for us to put our money where our mouth is. Come this Sunday, so at the time of recording, tomorrow, the winner of the Carabao Cup will be who?
think the players that won't play are going to have a bigger impact than the ones that do. And I think that Newcastle missing both Lewis Hall and Sven Botman for this fixture due to injury is going to be detrimental to them, considering how fantastic Lewis Hall has been one of the best players for Newcastle this season. And again, not that, Tino Livramento, isn't a capable, replacement for him, but it's just, the level, it's just a different level that Lewis Hall is playing on. And I think that's going to end up being the difference, especially on Newcastle's left, Liverpool's right, when you're coming up against Salah. And I think that's going to have a huge, huge effect on the game. And I think Liverpool's going to win.
Gitano, it's a fair pick, and I think it's a pick that the majority of fans are going to go with, and rightly so. For me, though, there's something that is kind of gnawing at me that Newcastle, almost at about 70 years without a trophy, that they need to win one, that they deserve to win one. And I've bet against them many a times in the past. I saw what they did to Arsenal in this competition over 2 legs, even though that this cup final is a one-off. I am going to take Newcastle. And there's something about that club. I really don't know what it is, but I almost have I don't want to say a connection because that's way too big of a word, but I feel a certain something towards that club, and
it's a massive level of respect.
Yeah,
because I think I feel kind of the same thing. Like, just the working class background of the club and their supporters, and just the shit they've gone through over the years. From being one of the top teams to, the relegation promotion to, like, being kind of lower mid-table, now mid-table, and now, we're talking about them, potentially playing in Europe and, winning major trophies. I think respect is the way I feel towards them.
Yeah, there is a certain sort of respect, and I think the word that I was looking for maybe was admiration.
Yes, yeah.
So I really do feel that, and I won't mention the person's name, but someone who's close to me, he's a Manchester United fan, and he did say to me one time, he goes, if I didn't support United, he goes, 1000%, I would support Newcastle. He goes, that's a massive club that is just filled with rich history and the whole bit. So, and I can't say that I disagree with him, that Newcastle is a club that I could see even myself, if I wasn't an Arsenal fan, I could see myself supporting them. So just for my sort of respect, admiration, what I think that they might deserve out of this cup final, even though they got to go out on the pitch and earn it, I'm going to take Newcastle, and you will take Liverpool. Can't wait for tomorrow to watch that final, Gitano. A reminder to our listeners that the Carabao Cup final will be played this Sunday, March 16th at Wembley Stadium. Kickoff time is set for 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and in our next episode of Full Time, we will recap the game for all of you. And now it is time for a local soccer update. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Well, for local, regional, and provincial soccer enthusiasts, that is. No, it's not Christmas time. It is the start of high school soccer. Gitano, Monday, March 17th marks the official start of high school soccer across the province of Ontario. And right here, specifically in Sault Ste. Marie, high schools across the city will be eligible to begin hosting tryouts and assembling their teams for the upcoming season. How exciting of a time is this, G?
Super exciting. For me in high school, so I never played high school soccer. I didn't actually play soccer through high school. It wasn't until like near the end that I started even kicking around. But whenever you like hear the announcement of like, oh, like the sign up papers, outside the big gym, because I went to the old St. Mary's,
Right.
it was like, hey, like now we're like nearing the end of the school year. Like we're in the business end of the school year here. Like we're starting to pick up, we're starting to go. And it was always like, so our teams were always pretty competitive. I, off the top of my head, don't remember what they won in my years there. But like I knew they were always in contention, semifinals and finals and NASAs and stuff like that. So it was always just super exciting, knowing that our team was going and representing our school, at such a high level as well, and doing so well doing it. Just an incredibly exciting time.
Oh, definitely. And to how well St. Mary's did down the years. Obviously, I went to St. Basil, but having to go up to St. Mary's, in any sport, any competition that I've ever played, soccer or other sport, so those are some of the toughest battles of my life, playing against St. Mary's in high school soccer. Always so difficult. But when you were in high school, when I was there as well, St. Mary's was always very good in both girls and guys soccer, and they still are. To this day, always in contention to win things, even after the Catholic schools amalgamated here in the Sault. So definitely exciting times in Sault Ste. Marie and across the province for high school soccer beginning this upcoming Monday. And as always, here in the city of Sault Ste. Marie, as is the case largely across the province of Ontario, divisions in high school soccer are permitted for junior girls, junior boys, senior girls, and senior boys. Gitano, high school soccer is sort of a realm of soccer that for a short period of time was really overlooked in our province. And by the way, I hate to say it, but really overlooked in our city as well, only because there had been such a narrow focus put into rep soccer. So high school soccer in Sault Ste. Marie started in 2002, which was way later than the other sports started. But for the first about 8 or so years, nobody really paid any attention to it. And that was kind of the case in Ontario as well. But as time has gone along, particularly over the past, several years, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, um, you know, high school soccer across the province has gained immense credibility whereby college and university scouts, and I know this personally, they're just waiting for the opportunity to watch regional competitions and the prestigious OFSA competition. So if you could, Gitano, just speak to the growth of high school soccer here locally and across our province over the past 15 years or so, because it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, it's wild even comparing. So I was in high school 10 years ago. And like, I thought that was like a ridiculously high level of soccer. It was the highest I'd ever really seen. I didn't grow up playing rep soccer. I just played just like house league. So like going like watching the St. Mary's team play, I was like, oh wow, like these guys are so good. And now like again, 10 years later, I'm watching them play now, and I'm like, these kids are like infinitely better than we were at the time. Like the levels have just, skyrocketed. And again, it's not just like the guys, but the girls too, the junior and senior, both levels, like everyone, like the levels have just, soared. It's just an incredible level of soccer. I know even coaching with my sister for a while in the women's league, like that's how we did our scouting for the women's league team, was like, let's go watch the high school games. Let's see who's good and coming up. Let's see if we bring them in. Like that was how we did it. And we brought in a bunch of fantastic players at that level. And a few of them are actually still with my sister's team. A few of them went on to play university and college soccer across the province, like, because that is like the level that these players are at now. It's incredible.
It really is incredible, and I'll give a shout out as well to the Game Sports podcast. Dave McKagan, those guys, they did a segment for high school hockey just the other day on their most recent episode. So I would encourage anybody to go on 91 Network and take a look at that one. And they talked about high school hockey getting more respect, and people should be putting more respect into it because the level of player that is coming out of that now, and OFSA hockey right after the March break here, the spring break is going to be commencing as well. So high school sports largely seem to be getting better and better, at least with soccer and hockey that we can speak to. So I agree with you that as time has gone along, just improved immensely. And for the players, this may be, in fact, the highest level of competition that they ever play in the sport. The chance to represent their school locally, regionally, and provincially is an amazing opportunity in every sense. Gitano, some of the things that I pride myself on in my life and that I look back on and I'm very proud of was that I got to represent my school, St. Basil, in many sports, but particularly in soccer, locally, regionally, and provincially. So how cool is it for our local athletes to have this opportunity as well?
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't play. Well, I was on the curling team, but we didn't do much. But I didn't play any like high school sports at that level. I would have killed to have like went to like a provincial tournament. Like that is just, even now, like I'm nearly 30, and like the thought of being able to do that, like that's so cool to like be amongst like the best in the province. Yeah, I would have killed to do that. And I think, obviously I know you did because you're a fantastic athlete at whatever you did. But like for these kids who like aren't going to get the chance to maybe, go play a college university level just because they won't be able to, like, if this is going to be like the top level they play at, it's still a stupidly impressive achievement to be able to represent your school at that level. And I just really look forward to seeing that all play out this year.
Yeah, me too. And we've said it a few times on our show down the years, and even when I was on this show with Scott Nason previously, I coach high school soccer. This will be my now seventh season in charge of a high school soccer team, and I always tell my players all the times that you need to really relish this and you need to really enjoy this because the years will go by quickly. But the fact that you get to represent your school locally, regionally, possibly provincially, it's got to be one of the greatest honors that you'll ever be a part of in any facet of life, unless if you go on to, do something globally. So I always tell my players to really relish this, and I agree that it truly is a great honor. And I think that every athlete in our city has that opportunity to relish this opportunity for sure. And Sioux Sports does sponsor our podcast, but they also cover high school soccer on their website and through their live streaming platforms. And whilst teams will only begin tryouts this week, it won't be before long that the snow melts and the outdoor turf field is set and ready to go for high school soccer action. When the season does roll around, you can be sure to get every single high school soccer update right here on Full Time, as our show is rooted in local soccer. The four participating high schools in high school soccer here this season in the city of Sault Ste. Marie are the Superior Heights Steelhawks, St. Mary's Knights, the Cora Colts, and the White Pines Wolverines. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to the Full Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker and easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we wrap up today's show, we want to send you all our greatest debt of thanks. Your support means everything. G, well done today, my friend.
Thank you, and well done to you as well. A little disappointed with the city result, ended up with the 2-2 draw, but outside of that, a fantastic session with you today, Scarps.
Definitely, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir, and enjoy the Carabao Cup final tomorrow as well. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of March 17th, 2025. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five, the Carabao Cup, and the FA Cup. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of 91 Network and YouTube on Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Podbean, and Spaces at SiouxToday.com. For Gaetano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Full Time Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.